The sound of a metal mop bucket echoing across the massive aircraft hangar was the only thing breaking the silence that morning. A single father in a faded blue janitor uniform knelt quietly on the cold floor, wiping oil stains from beneath a multi-million-dollar fighter jet. His hands were rough, his face tired, and his eyes carried the silent weight of years of sacrifice. Beside him stood his young daughter, clutching the edge of his sleeve, watching everything with wide, innocent eyes. And then, in a single humiliating moment, everything changed. A sharp voice cut through the air like a blade. A wealthy woman in an elegant white suit strode across the hangar floor, her heels clicking loudly. She pointed at the janitor with visible disgust, her expression cold and furious. Workers nearby froze. Engineers stopped talking. Even security guards turned their heads. What happened next would shock everyone in that room. But before we continue, if you believe that kindness matters and that people deserve second chances, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs inspiration, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel Kindness Corner. Your support helps stories like this reach more hearts. The janitor's name was Daniel Carter. To everyone at the aerospace company, he was simply the cleaning guy. Every morning before sunrise, he arrived quietly with his daughter Lily because he had no one else to leave her with. His wife had passed away 3 years earlier after a long illness, leaving Daniel to raise their 6-year-old daughter alone. Life had not been easy since then. He worked long shifts cleaning floors, emptying trash bins, and polishing metal surfaces beneath some of the most advanced aircraft ever built. Engineers and executives walked past him every day without noticing. Some didn't even look at him. To them, he was invisible. But to Lily, he was a hero. She would sit on a small stool near his mop bucket, drawing airplanes on pieces of paper while watching her father work. Sometimes she would whisper questions about the giant jets above them, and Daniel would answer with surprising knowledge about engines, aerodynamics, and flight systems. The little girl didn't realize that most janitors couldn't explain those things. But no one paid attention to their quiet conversations. That morning, however, the powerful CEO of the company had arrived unexpectedly. Victoria Langford was known across the business world as one of the most ruthless billionaires in the aerospace industry. She had built the company into a global empire, and her presence alone could make an entire building fall silent. Her standards were brutal, and mistakes were rarely forgiven. When she entered the hangar with her team of executives and security staff, the atmosphere immediately changed. Everything looked perfect: polished floors, organized equipment, spotless workstations. Except for one thing. Daniel was kneeling beneath the company's newest fighter jet prototype, carefully scrubbing a patch of grease from the floor. Victoria's eyes narrowed instantly. To her, it looked like a janitor touching equipment worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Her anger exploded. She stormed forward and pointed sharply at him, her voice loud enough for the entire hangar to hear. She accused him of interfering with expensive machinery and shouted that people like him had no place near aircraft that required years of engineering and billions in investment. Employees nearby shifted uncomfortably. Some looked down at the floor. Others watched silently, afraid to say anything. Daniel slowly stood up, wiping his hands on his worn uniform. He didn't argue. He didn't raise his voice. He simply listened. Lily looked up at the CEO with confusion and fear, gripping her father's hand tighter. Victoria continued her harsh lecture, criticizing his presence and demanding that security escort him away from the jet immediately. She spoke as if he were careless, uneducated, and completely unworthy of being in that space. Daniel's eyes lowered slightly. Not in shame, but in patience. Because humiliation was something he had learned to endure long ago. 3 years of working unseen had taught him something powerful: dignity doesn't come from a job title. Still, the silence in the hangar felt heavy. Everyone expected the janitor to apologize and disappear. But something small caught Victoria's attention. As Daniel reached for the mop handle beside him, the sleeve of his uniform shifted slightly, revealing a faded tattoo on his forearm. It was not an ordinary tattoo. It was a symbol that only a very small number of people in the aerospace world would recognize. Victoria's words stopped mid-sentence. Her expression changed instantly. She stepped closer. Her eyes locked onto the symbol again. It was the emblem of a highly classified military aviation unit, a program responsible for designing experimental aircraft technologies years ahead of anything publicly known. Only a handful of engineers in the world had ever been part of that program. And Victoria knew exactly what it meant. Her voice dropped, almost uncertain now. The executives behind her began whispering quietly. Daniel noticed her staring and slowly rolled down his sleeve again, trying to hide the tattoo. But the moment had already passed. The hangar was silent. Victoria suddenly looked very different, no longer angry, but stunned. She asked him quietly where he had gotten that tattoo. Daniel hesitated. For a moment, it seemed like he might refuse to answer. But then he looked down at Lily. And something in his eyes softened. Years ago, Daniel Carter had been one of the most brilliant aerospace engineers in the country. He had worked on advanced aircraft designs for military research programs so secret that even most government officials didn't know they existed. His ideas had helped develop propulsion systems that could change the future of aviation. But when his wife became sick, everything changed. Hospitals, treatments, and endless bills consumed his life. He left his prestigious job to care for her full-time and be present for their daughter. The research world moved on without him. His projects were reassigned. His reputation slowly disappeared. When his wife passed away, Daniel found himself alone, grieving, and financially ruined. The janitor job at the aerospace company was the only position available that allowed him to work flexible hours while caring for Lily. So he accepted it. Not for pride, but for survival. As Daniel quietly explained his past, the shock spreading across Victoria's face became impossible to hide. The executives standing behind her began recognizing his name. One of them even whispered that several patents used in their current aircraft research had originally been filed by a Daniel Carter years ago. The same man they had ignored every day. The same man mopping their floors. Victoria stepped back slightly, her confidence fading. For the first time in years, she realized she had judged someone entirely by appearance. The hangar felt different now. The janitor everyone overlooked was suddenly someone extraordinary. But Daniel didn't seem interested in recognition. He simply picked up his mop again and returned to cleaning the floor, as if none of it mattered. Because to him, being a father mattered far more. Watching him kneel beside the mop bucket again, Victoria felt something unfamiliar. Regret. Real regret. Just before we reach the ending, if this story has touched your heart even a little, please comment the word respect below. It helps more people discover stories that remind us not to judge others too quickly. Victoria took a deep breath and walked back toward Daniel, this time without anger. She offered him something unexpected, an invitation to return to engineering, to help lead one of the company's most important aircraft projects. The room held its breath. Daniel looked at Lily, who smiled up at him with quiet pride. For years he had felt invisible. But in that moment, something changed. Not because the CEO offered him power, but because his daughter finally saw the world recognize the hero she had always known. And if this story moved you, reminded you to treat people with kindness, or inspired you in any way, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Your engagement helps spread stories that prove dignity, patience, and love can reveal the true greatness hidden within ordinary lives.